Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is Troy Munson, the CEO and founder of Dimmo. That's DIMMO.ai, his latest venture. Troy is a serial entrepreneur and until recently was a full-time enterprise software salesperson and a successful one who was creating software companies in his spare time, saw an opportunity, bootstrapped really quickly, and got him up and running and sold two companies already. Not for any major wins, but he is learning the game and he's getting better. His latest venture is Dimmo. He raised a little bit of money of it. So we're going to hear how a practical founder who wants to hurry up and build these companies and sell them quickly, a flipper, if you will, as a practical founder, how Troy thinks about this game and how he's playing it. It's really quite interesting to see how fast he's moving and how he's thinking about his end game. We also talk about what's happening in enterprise software sales, which is changing this year, and he's in that game. That's why he created Dimmo, which is right in there for sales demos for software companies out there. So it's a great interview of a practical founder. Hey, Troy, welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast.
Greg, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
And where is here this week for you,
Here
Troy?
is, for me, Madison, Wisconsin, the tech hub of the U.S.
Yes, right, in the great heartland. And I'm from the Chicago area. I grew up there. We talked earlier. You actually lived a mile or two from where I live right now. That's where you grew up, here in the Dallas area, just north of the airport, in between Dallas and Fort Worth, and all of that. And now you're headed to the Midwest. So you're not a native Midwesterner, I guess.
No, I had no idea that I would end up here in the Midwest. I assumed that my kids and family would be raised in Texas, in the DFW area. But, some things just don't work out.
Isn't that funny? And I think I know the answer to this, the typical answer, but why are you in Madison, Wisconsin?
My wife's family. They
there you go. Yeah.
We have a kid. We have another kid on the way. We decided to move closer to family, and her family is extremely helpful. Mine is not as much, but
whatever. We won't quote you on that, but that's great. So, you're doing a very different thing, a different flavor of the practical founder approach than we normally hear. Usually it's the unsexy, slow, compounding SaaS steamroller flywheel that you sell for $50, $75 million. But you're in the fast start, grow fast, and sell quickly. And you've done it a few times. So there's a lot of folks out there who start these businesses, get them up and running quickly, and hand them off to somebody else to run from there before they get too big. And you don't even have to play too much of the CEO game. It's all the fast-moving founder. Your latest venture is Dimmo, DIMMO. Let's just explain what is Dimmo and where's it at today, and then we'll go back and talk about your fast start SaaS ventures.
Yeah, so simply put, Dimmo is a place that somebody can go, so any sort of software consumer, somebody can go and evaluate software without having to be forced through a sales cycle, so they can evaluate technology, all of that fun stuff. Again, without having to go through a sales cycle, they can watch the demo, which is kind of why I named it Dimmo.
That's good.
And where we're at today is we launched on May 15th. Our marketplace launched 5 months ago, and we are doing 6 figures in revenue. And we actually, as of this morning, so hoorah, just closed our biggest deal today. So it's fun. We're growing fast. We're getting there, and I'm excited.
Yeah, so you don't have a big company yet. We're not looking back at years and years because this may grow really quickly, and a year from now you may be out of it, or we'll talk about where that goes. But do you have an intention of how big this needs to be for you to hit your number?
Yeah. So I actually spoke with somebody this morning. I think I was on another podcast this morning, and they asked me a similar question. And I said, for Dimmo specifically, I want an 8-figure exit. And the reason for that is I've done decently well, which I'm very happy for. I'm very grateful for. I don't feel accomplished yet. I feel like I've been successful, but I don't feel like I've accomplished what I wanted to yet. And since college, even probably before then, I'm like, I want to go sell something for 8 figures or more. And so that's what I want to do with Dimmo. When it comes to length, like I don't see me being in this seat for 10 years. I see it being a few year run, especially if we keep growing at this trajectory. And then, yeah, hopefully one of our competitors or somebody interesting in the space would say, hey, that's something that we want.
Awesome. So when you say eight figure, just to translate for everybody, that's somewhere over 10 million. And there's a lot of space in between 10 and 100 million. The average founder on the Practical Founders podcast, uh, averaging the smaller deals and some of the bigger deals, has created founder equity value like 50 to 60 million, something like that. But you're talking getting into the tens, maybe 20 or something like that million,
Yeah,
right?
the very first conversation that I had with my co-founders was, is there a way we can get this acquired for 30 to 40 million? So I
Okay.
think that that's kind of still our North Star.
Okay.
I just don't want to shut down the idea if something sexy comes up before then and like we
Yeah.
don't have that much revenue, but we do have a lot of traffic growth and
Yeah.
somebody's like, I want this before it gets big.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm all ears.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll pay for the forward growth and pay
Yep.
you now for that kind of thing. So
Exactly.
this is kind of let's say a speed game kind of thing. And you have a couple co-founders. You actually have a little angel funding as well. So what kind of co-founders do you have now? How many are
Yeah,
on the
yeah. So I
team?
have a technical co-founder who builds the product.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time at Optimizely and Meta, and then the other co-founder that I had that I have is was a top performing sales rep at Gong, which
Okay.
most people know is a fast growing SaaS company.
Yeah.
Then she ended up building her personal brand, similar to myself. She did it way before I did, and then she just started to do consulting, and so she is the third
Ah.
co-founder.
Okay, great. And so the co-founders, you're going to split it between you somehow, where you win the prize. And um, you recently quit your day job, right? You were a full-time enterprise account executive, software sales. So we'll talk about that. But are they also full-time in the business, or are they all squeezing their way in?
Yeah, yeah. For the most part, so she's full time, but she recently had a kid, so she's taking a
Yeah.
little bit of time off. First
Hmm.
kid, kind of go through those motions, and then he is giving around 30 hours a week, and he's kind of juggling two things at once. Only until we get into the right place from his shares at Meta to be vested, and then it's like, all right, let's go. So,
Yeah.
and then we also have for full transparency, we have another employee and then a contracted engineer. But yeah,
Okay, great. And so, and you have revenues now, and you're up and running with this. The let's talk about your angel investing here. You've created a couple other businesses. You with these other scrappy co-founders did it in your spare time. See if you can get something out there, get some traction, and sell it. We'll talk about those. But you actually raised some money for Dimmo here, and a little more than you expected.
yeah. Yeah, so I've always been anti VC. It's
Okay.
just I don't know why. I think there's this thing where people go off and start their own company, and the reason that they want to do it, yeah, one is maybe a monetary thing, but I think the other thing is to have freedom and not have anybody breathing
Yeah.
down your neck.
Yeah.
And that's why I always look at people and I'm like, you went to go create your own thing. Now you're Series A, Series B, of board members, and
Yeah.
you probably have
Isn't
more
that
people breathing
interesting?
down your neck than you did in a W-2 job. So
Yeah.
I'm still not for that at all. But essentially, what had happened was I was in this position where Dimmo on May 15th, our launch, blew up way faster than anybody
Yeah.
could have ever imagined. And it got to the point where it was me and my two co-founders, where we were all doing other things. Nobody was full time.
Right.
We were all doing other things, and it required somebody to go full time. And there was two options. One, sell it early where there was like barely any revenue, just a lot of traction. And I'm talking barely any revenue, like 20, 30K of revenue, or somebody go full time and take the reins. And so I have a family,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a son, I've got a mortgage. Like I've got bills to pay. I can't just go full time and live off of our savings. My wife would never allow that. So
Yeah.
I didn't have that pitch in me. I've been in sales, but I couldn't get that sale. Right. And so all that to say is I was like, if we can get some outside money that doesn't require my wife to be upset with me for taking our money, then
Yeah.
I can go full time. And so we did end up raising. We were going to raise around $300,000. We ended up raising a little bit more than that. We're under a million, but yeah, it was kind of accidental. But then
This was the
someone
friends
called.
and family, pass the hat, angel investors,
Yep,
20K checks, all that stuff. Yeah.
exactly. You
Okay.
just like that. we didn't expect, like, again, kind of like the launch. We didn't expect to have that traction on the
Yeah.
raising side, but um, sometimes things fall into place, and here we are.
So back to the concept of Dimmo. You're in enterprise sales, which is you're on the other side of this, BDRs and call for a demo, and you're doing that long sales cycle account executive game with enterprise software companies here. And we know that buyers on the other side are like, can I just see the demo and see if it's right for me and see 5 demos and not have to be in somebody's sales cycle and, play that whole game. Now you can go to Dimmo and see lengthy demos of the products you're interested in before ever talking to anybody.
Yeah, and the whole point there is less of, hey, let's take sales reps out of a job, and more so, how do we get a person to come inbound and be educated and be qualified? So as a large enterprise sales rep, most of the inbound leads that you get, especially at a
Yeah.
larger company, you get a
Oh my
lot of
God.
inbound leads from a company
Right.
you want to break into, but they're not necessarily a good fit, or they're very low on the totem pole, which is fine. I think those are great
Would you call that
conversations.
unqualified, Mr. Sales Guy?
I wouldn't say it's unqualified. I would just say they're probably not ready yet.
Yeah, yeah.
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 So yeah, I mean, my whole thing was, if we can, one, educate people before they go inbound, that would do two things, in my opinion. One, it would increase the ACV, because they now it's a sales rep's job when they come inbound
Right.
to tell the educated and educate them more on how else they can use the product. So expand the deal from a 5-figure deal to a 6-figure deal, so on and so forth. And then on the other side, it's reduced sales cycle length. Like, they've watched
Yeah.
your demo, they've watched your competitor's demo, and then
Yeah.
your other
Boom, they're
competitor's
there.
demo.
Yeah.
They know that you're
Pre-qualified.
the one, right? And so
Yeah.
I actually hope to arm salespeople with more qualified leads and more qualified pipeline, and remove them from the sales cycle. Now, I will say, I think that there is a world, with or without demo. I do think that there's a world in which the BDR motion will be disrupted. Um, but enterprise sales reps, I don't think that, knowing which is what I did, I can't imagine tech replacing that. So I do
Even
see some.
AI, as quote smart as it is, and the conversation we're hearing from Silicon Valley about AI replacing a substantial part of the enterprise sales rep, you're doing complicated things with complicated businesses, and you're figuring out complicated solutions. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about the AI coming into enterprise sales?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of falls back into that answer, and the reason I say that is because today we released AI, so you can actually evaluate tech and even like the key differences between competitors, and then you can watch their demo one after another, and you can
Yeah.
get those sales questions answered. But when I come to think about it from, like, for example, when I was at Proofpoint and I sold to
Yeah.
companies that had 400,000 global employees and like
Yeah.
40,000 US employees, there was like 50 people that I had to deal with in the sales cycle. And I
Yeah.
went and went out into into their headquarters and had meetings with
Yeah.
them. I sat down,
Uh-huh.
had lunch. AI is not going to do that. Now, maybe tech that targets small business and mid-market, like, maybe you can use AI to evaluate, explore, and transact that technology. But I just find it so tough from the large enterprise sales space. The only area that I can see it is, maybe you lean down the teams, but at the same time, now your reps are more prepared to, one, focus on the right areas, and two, they're more prepared for the calls, because AI is giving you all the summaries, all the research,
Yeah.
everything like that. But
Okay.
holding human conversations at a very strategic level with multiple stakeholders, it might be tough for AI at least in the foreseeable future. That
There
might
we
be a
go.
thing.
Yeah. Well, that trust game, we're not quite ready to trust AI yet with autonomous driving and autonomous selling, I guess you'd say. And I'm thinking about is this product led growth where you don't talk to salespeople, you just get in and play with the product? And it's not really that. It's not sales led growth. The salesperson isn't jumping across and doing outbound and pulling a lead across and doing the demo. You might call it demo led growth, right? Start with the demo when you're interested. And you can go to the review sites and hear what other people say and compare stuff, but you can't get the demo, right?
That's right. And there will be a time in which you can ask your community and ask your peers while watching a demo what they think about it and if they've used it and their feedback and input. So there is a time where you're going
Ah,
to be able to ask anybody. So if you're a marketer, you can ask any marketer about a specific tool as you're watching the demo, and you'll be able to get answers right then and there.
okay.
That time's coming up, hopefully Q1,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
So are you disrupting the review sites where they don't actually get to see the product? Maybe they say screenshots, but they're the public screenshots. Are you disrupting the review sites for those kind of sales, or is this a different thing?
I'd say they're a competitor, but it's tough. Maybe, yeah. I'd say I'm disrupting that. I'd like to play friendly with them. One,
Yeah.
because like I still think reviews are important.
Yeah.
We're not going to touch the review space. We actually send people to G2 on our
Yeah.
pages.
Okay. There you go.
Um, but we play in that space in the sense of we aggregate a ton of technology into one place and we let you evaluate a ton of technology in one place. So yeah, in that case, it's similar. We want to go more on like the deeper evaluation, maybe even transactions here shortly, but that's kind of the area we want to go. So kind of, yeah.
So where do you get your demos? Like these hour-long demos of Proofpoint, I see is out there, your former employer, that salespeople used to do, or the sales engineer or whatever used to do, and they're obviously not customized for the three problems you have. We're going to focus on those three benefits in our solution. But where do you get your demos that people can see in
Yeah.
public?
Yeah, so 90% of them come from the company themselves. So when we
Oh,
launched, we had 45
oh,
different companies on our site, all that requested to be on our site, and then now we've had over 1,000 companies request to be on our
I
site. And
bet.
so I personally go through and I watch them all because what I don't want is a lot of like marketing videos
Blah
where
blah
or
blah blah.
marketing demo. Blah, yeah,
Hmm.
let me see the platform. That's what I care about, right? So yeah, we've had over 1,000 companies request to be on our site, and then the other 10% comes from really popular companies that haven't requested, but if everything is publicly accessible, let's just go ahead and make them a page to drive
Yeah,
them more free traffic. And then we
right.
can use that free traffic to get them to come inbound and become our customer. So that's what we do.
So who's your customer here? Who's paying?
The company's paying. So anybody watching a demo evaluating tech is
Okay.
never going to pay. The company is paying. And for that, it's more so like page insights, data, and things like that.
And you're presumably, if somebody sees three demos and they get interested in one, they're headed towards that company. Are you facilitating that lead handoff or whatever you'd say?
Not yet. There's two popular companies out there, like, well, three, Default, Chili Piper, Revenue Hero, and now even Calendly,
Yeah, yeah.
that all do the routing for you. So if they're already customers of them, then they can definitely use their link and we can route that meeting for them.
Hmm.
But right now we aren't doing any sort of handoff. It's more so like, hey, this company might be interested. Go figure it out.
Yeah. So you're not quite a lead generation business, like selling qualified leads or anything like that. You're selling a marketing platform, and eventually, I'm sure it'll turn into more of a high, provable ROI kind of game or something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. Spot on.
Yeah. Okay, great. So three people started this. How did you come up with this idea? Were you just, this is your 100th idea? You're a fast start idea guy. You're seeing all kinds of problems out there, and you and your buddies filtered through a lot of these ideas, or this thing really just stuck with you and you started playing with it.
Yeah. So the way I came up with the idea is you mentioned it a few times. I'm like this fast starter person, so I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll talk about it. I built vocal and referral in the past just from like an
yeah.
immediate thought, like this is annoying. This should be solved. Let me solve it. Let me sell it, and then let me see if there's any interest. So with Dimmo, it was more so honestly, I've been doing side gigs. I've been like the side gig guy on LinkedIn for a year
Hmm.
or so, and that's all I wanted to do was, hey, let me create extra income on the side. And
Yeah.
that was the exact hope
Okay.
for Dimmo
Yeah.
was
A side
how
gig.
do I yeah, it was how do I pay my mortgage with a side gig? And so what I thought of was I knew for a fact people wanted to see demos. Like that I didn't have to validate that. That was just like that's a proven fact. So I said, "You know what? What if I just hosted demo days, which we still do monthly?"
Dimmo days at Dimmo,
Yep.
Dimmo dot AI now?
I know pretty much now it's like demo days versus demo,
Yeah.
um but yeah, so I hosted demo days and I was driving home from the gym one day and I said, let me figure out if I can host a demo day. I will
Hmm.
charge the companies to present at the demo day and then I will go drive the registrants. And driving registrants is hard. I've quickly realized that. But all that to say is that same day I went home, I sold ABM software at this point, or I sold ABM software, so account based marketing software
Right.
at my previous job. I was now at cybersecurity, but I was like, I know the ABM space, so let me go reach out to a bunch of ABM software and see if they all want to host a demo day, and we'll call it the ABM demo day. So it was very niche to ABM
Okay.
solutions.
Right.
That same day, Literally, again, the same day I thought of the idea, we had 12 companies saying that they're willing to pay us. We were charging way too little at this point, but I didn't know. And so once I had 12 companies saying we're ready to pay us, I just scheduled out 4 demo days. Yeah, I was like, this
Yeah.
is okay, cool. And so I scheduled out 4 demo days. And then next thing you know, one thing led to another after a couple of successful demo. That's, by the way, to kind of backtrack, that's when I brought in my co-founder because she has a
Mhm.
very large LinkedIn audience. I was like, I need your help driving registrants. I have a demo day coming up and I don't know how to drive registrants. So after doing 4 successful ones, that's when we decided to say, you know what? I think that this
Just
needs to
come
be
here.
more of a play. Like, how do you just go watch software demos? And that was still the goal. Let's just make it like a YouTube for software, and then we'll just take some sort of revenue. Like, we don't know what kind of
Mhm.
revenue, but we'll find a way to monetize it. But again, it blew up faster than we expected, and I had to go. I had to go full time, which now I'm so happy I did.
Well, how does that feel? Because you were a side gig guy for years, working on these things, trying to come up with ideas, throwing them out there. But this one was an idea that you threw out there, and it was enough of an idea that it started to move pretty quickly. And so you were the one who elected to go full time out of the team.
Yeah. And Greg, it feels great. I hope I never go back to the side gig guy. I hope I also never go
Oh,
back to any sort of W-2 work.
okay.
It's so great to just be
Yeah, we
able to,
call that buying your freedom.
and we're buying it. We're buying it.
Yeah,
There's a
you're paying
cost
for
you
it
pay.
already. Yeah,
There's a
right. Yeah.
cost you pay for sure. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what have you learned along the way? Like, you did the demo days and you got this thing going and so forth. I'm sure, is it like a weekly or monthly cycle? We try these things, we learn these things, we do these things, we try these. What's your cycle time in this kind of speed freak approach?
Yeah, well, the speed's gonna slow down a little bit on this one, only because there is a very decent amount of traction, and I'm not
Yeah.
trying to just sell it like 50K ARR, especially now that
Yeah.
we're past that. But I would say, I would say my learnings. One big learning is I hate hiring, and I hope I never have to do it again. I know I
Oh,
will have to, but
yeah.
hiring sucks.
Yeah.
But I think I've also learned that it is so important to ruthlessly prioritize the tasks that will
Mm,
move the needle versus the tasks that will not.
right.
And also, like I have a VA that I guess you could say like an executive assistant, like an EVA,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call
Hmm.
them, that does a lot of the manual burden work that I would sit there and do for hours a day in the very beginning. And so I think a lot of it comes down to one, like I've learned to ruthlessly prioritize, like what do I need to do today to move the needle, whether it's from a
Hmm.
revenue perspective, customer perspective, or from a product perspective, but also like delegating the tasks that like you should take off your plate. I also have learned that I don't know as much as I thought I knew. And
Ah,
that
here
comes
we go.
from a whole admin perspective, like reading data and creating dashboards and analyzing trends. Like I was a sales rep. I just went out there, I created pipeline, I moved
Boom.
pipeline,
Yeah.
I closed pipeline. That's all I know. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's something I'm still learning to this day. When it comes to cycles, like you mentioned, honestly, at this point, a lot of our growth is just from LinkedIn. The co-founder and
Okay.
I, one of the co-founders and I together, we have around 120, 130,000 followers, and
Yeah.
I generate, I don't know, a million impressions a month or so. And so
Yeah.
I bust my ass on LinkedIn, and I do it every single day to really drive as much
Yeah.
revenue and as much eyeballs as we can.
And is there anything else besides LinkedIn? Probably people aren't Googling this yet, and for SEO or paid or ads, and you guys are lean and mean. So it's pretty much pump the LinkedIn channel as hard as you can and get audience, right, to watch those demos.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the main source of
Yeah.
everything, to be honest. But our first ever hire was a head of content, and now we're the goal is how do we create a content engine that can continuously, from a lean team perspective, continuously
Yeah.
pump out as much content as we possibly can, to generate as much organic traffic as possible. So our play here is demo day is create a lot of content. It really is just
Yeah.
like how do we
I
become
am.
some sort of like media company, create a lot of
Right.
content and
Yeah.
leverage our voices.
Right. So
Yeah.
voice to start and then content to build a foundation. And it's great SEO thing. How do I get a proof point demo? Does proof point do this? Get a demo? There's a thousand, there's probably a structured process for each one just to have content for that. So for everything,
Yeah.
get a
Yeah.
HubSpot demo, those kind of things, or FAQs or all that kind of stuff there. So is it YouTube of these demos now? And you can go to Dimmo.ai and watch them to your heart's content, or is there something else going on out there?
Yeah, so I'd say now we're a step past that, but for the first 4 to 5 months, yeah,
Yeah,
so we launched with 45 technologies. We have 415,
look
420
at you.
today,
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And we're really only focusing a lot on like the go-to-market space right now because that's where our audience
Oh,
is.
marketing tools,
Yeah,
technology.
marketing. So it's really like RevOps, customer success, sales, and
I see.
marketing. But the goal, of course, over time is how do you expand into every single category? But we want to
Yeah,
make sure we can nail down a specific category first.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, now, as of today, actually, I don't know when this is going to air, but as of today, October, I don't know what it is, 29th. Yep. We did launch a way to actually evaluate tech without really needing to talk to sales. So for example, if you're a ZoomInfo customer and you're like, "Hey, I'm using ZoomInfo, but I'm not really happy. What should I get?" Instead of it saying, "You should get these," it's more so, "Well, what don't you like about it? Is it the contact data accuracy? Is it the customer support? Is it the pricing?" It's
Hmm.
almost like that first qualification call that you get from a BDR when you go inbound just to get
Yeah,
passed
the
off to a
basic
sales
stuff.
rep.
Yeah.
It's like that's what I want to solve right now, and I want to
Through
perfect that.
AI, kind of a little prompting conversation, like we're talking to ChatGPT, and
It
but it's trained and it knows the three questions to ask to guide me to the right bucket, just like a BDR would.
exactly. That's
Oh,
I mean, inbound BDRs, I think that
okay.
there's a place for them, but I also think there might not be in the future. Again, regardless of demo or not.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people are talking about the pullback in software over compared to 2 years ago during COVID, or 3 years ago now. It's a recession. There's a big funding, pullback, but software is still growing, but it's not as customers are more skeptical. They take longer. They're more budget conscious. They're not buying technology willy nilly here. This ought to play into that, where silly marketing kinds of things to go get leads don't really work, but people still need solutions and they want to find the right one, and they want to do it efficiently and get the best deal and so forth. You must play into a more disciplined buying, approach that still happens out there. And the SaaS industry is massive now, so I'm sure you could build a very big company there.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, that's we'll see if that's the hope. I mean, the hope is definitely from a revenue perspective be big, but I don't want to be people big. I don't want to be people big.
I don't want to be people big. So let's jump over to this. What do you call this kind of big business? It's not a side gig anymore. You used to be able to say side gig, Troy, but now it's not side gig. I call it flipper. Like, you go build it, sell it. I know plenty of founders who have funded their new companies by creating previous companies and selling them for 100,000 and 500,000 and millions and so forth. So, do you have a name for this kind of side gig to fast start approach?
You know, I don't. Maybe
Yeah.
insanity. I don't know. I don't think that I don't have a
Yeah.
name. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just impulsiveness,
Yeah. Okay.
boredom. Who knows? You know?
Yeah. Right. Well, we can. I mean, is that let's say, your personality? You're very savvy. You're doing senior account executive enterprise sales, which, you can make great money there. And you're right, it's less like selling than creating, as people say, passing a bill in Congress to sell a $500,000 deal to a major corporation or something like that. But are you you're always seeing something and jumping on it, and then you get bored pretty quickly, that kind of approach?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'll see a problem or the whole scratch your own itch kind of thing, which most
Yeah.
companies are founded on. I'll see something like that and I'll say, hey, like now I know like it's not extremely difficult to get a piece of software up and running. There's many different ways, no code, low code, outsource, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, for me, it's like, okay, this is annoying for me. I bet this is annoying for other people. Let's find out. Let's go build a technology. Let's go scale it. And the last one referral that was sold, I scaled to about 15 or so annual customers. And that's when I was like, all right, this is too much as a side gig. And I didn't
Yeah.
believe in it enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's kind of just like I see an opportunity. I create it. And each time, every single side gig that I had, the next one did more revenue. So I feel like I continue to learn
Yeah.
more and more each time. And now I'm like, this is amazing. I love it, but it's
Yeah.
full time.
Well, so let's go back here. You got in, it was your first career out of university into sales and software sales. How did you know you were a sales guy?
Yes, it was. And I've always tried to create things from selling Pringles and Gatorades to construction workers as a little kid out of a wagon to trying to create a Bark Box competitor in college.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
I've done it all.
Yeah. This week's podcast is sponsored by my friends at Cypress Growth Capital. My favorite milestone for practical SaaS founders is after you've survived the first few crazy years and you have some repeatable sales and a growing team and perhaps a little profit showing up. You know you could grow faster with a little outside capital, but the thought of raising money from VCs would change your whole game. And we know VC funding is the most expensive growth capital on the planet. That's why so many practical SaaS founders I know have partnered with Cypress Growth Capital when they hit that predictable growth inflection point. For 15 years, Cypress has provided non-dilutive growth funding to bootstrap SaaS founders, including many of the successful founders I've had on this podcast. They love practical founders. Cypress provides enough patient capital for you to invest in your growth without giving up any of your precious equity or having to guarantee a loan personally. Their investment team has people like you who have grown and sold successful software and technology companies, and their operational and entrepreneurial experience helps them give you strategic guidance at those key inflection points in your business. So go to cypressgrowthcapital.com/practical and learn more, and contact Cliff Centel at Cypress to see if there's a fit. Now back to our podcast. Yeah. And so you started in software sales. Was that just your focus for a while? Was learn that game and get better at it and get, work with better and bigger companies on bigger deals? And how long did you play the enterprise software sales game?
About 7 or 8 years, and that was never the
Okay.
intent. I thought I'd be in supply chain and logistics, but things don't work out, and for the better.
Ah.
Yeah,
So is that
yeah,
what your degree was in?
yeah. I thought I was gonna get into oil and gas.
Okay, well, that's a Texas thing here, right?
Yeah,
And
yes, it
that's
is.
the opposite of fast start and let's do something in our spare time and get
Yep.
going and buy your freedom, right? Those are big industrial companies. Did you get
Yes.
out and go, no, no way am I doing that? Now I know that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
All right.
I thought I was promised a job, and I wasn't, so I said I need a job, and sales just opened its door, and
Okay.
never turned back. Never wish I went into another area. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Well, it's funny. I hear from technical founders who get up and, oh, I had to learn the sales game, right? And it's quite sophisticated. You say, like you sell to big companies. It's not just a simple demo. It's a relationship with 50 people on the buying team, and it gets quite complicated. But you're the sales guy that is having to figure out the other things inside the business, right? You're just on the front line selling, and you didn't realize all the stuff going on behind you there. What was your
mhm.
first side gig?
My first side gig was actually a company called Soft Leap when it was prospecting services. So COVID hit,
Okay.
and
Yeah. Right.
I was at MongoDB at this time,
Okay.
and I was booking a ton of meetings to the point where I was hosting trainings for my company of how I was booking meetings, and I was like, if my company can use these trainings, I bet there's other companies that could use these
Oh,
trainings.
look at
So
there.
I
There's
bucketed it into three specific techniques that I used, and I went out to Series A and Series B companies, and I reached out to them, and next thing you know, like I was able to generate some business. I ended up getting a future job from prospecting into somebody through that. But yeah, that was my very first one. Was Soft Leap, and it was a
I bet a
services
lot of
based
people
business.
on this podcast, listening to this podcast, would love to hire you to help figure out how to do prospecting efficiently. But
I
you
I
got a
literally just
different
got
gig.
asked on LinkedIn if I can come to a creative prospecting workshop for a company. It's just something I like to do. How to
Yeah,
stand out.
yeah, great. And so they also ought to be following you, Troy Munson, Munson, on LinkedIn because you're putting out a lot of great tips for sales types and the software marketing and go to market game. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. So you got in the service business. How long did that go?
That went about 6 months. The
Mm,
reason you can't it's so hard to run prospecting training while also having a full-time
I
job. I was
know.
doing like these 4-week trainings where I'd meet
I
with
know.
sales teams, and we would jump on Zoom because COVID just hit, and I would say, "Hey, here's how I'm using LinkedIn, here's how I'm using videos, here's how I'm using pictures, here's the workflow. Now go do it." And we would meet up once a week with several reps, and after about 4 customers, it's like, I can't handle anymore. We ended up getting to around, as me and one other friend, we ended up getting to around 10 customers, but It was too much. It was way too much.
Yeah. Great. And then did you shut it down and, or, just let it go, right?
Yeah, I didn't formally shut it down, but I was just like, we're good. We were charging $3,000 for training, which again, total ripoff. We should have done way more, but whatever. But yeah, I ended up
Meaning
just
you
saying
got
I'm
ripped
done with
off.
software.
It was too cheap for what you were
Yeah,
doing.
it was too
Yeah.
cheap for me to actually
Yeah.
like make it into something. But yeah, I
Yeah.
just said
That's your
we're
first
done with
experiment.
Soft Leap.
Yeah. Minimum viable company. You're seeing what goes on here.
Hmm.
Most people are surprised when they hear a practical founder and they say, yeah, we started this company and then got through all the usual trials and tribulations and grew it and finally sold it, and think, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then you really have to hear, and I try to get to it on the podcast, well, I did this for 5 years and then I did this for 10 years and it got me just ready to build it there. What was your second adventure?
Yeah, my
Side gig?
second one was called Vocal. The way I like to describe Vocal, the easiest way for somebody to think of it is the business professional OnlyFans. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I say that is I really, during COVID, again, this was about 2021, I believe, I wanted to get into real estate flipping. There was this course, it was
Oh, okay. Yeah.
$6,000, but I was like, I really follow this guy and I really look up to him, but I don't want to pay $6,000 and he has no idea where I'm at in my life financially. Like, I just want to talk to him for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, say, this is how much money I have. This is where I'm at, like, whatever, give him my whole rundown. And then in that 5 to 10 minutes, I'd pay him for that time. And there was nothing out there like that. Now there's a
So
huge company.
like I could people would request my time and want to get my thoughts on their business and put it through Greg GPT, I call it, and get the feedback. And people could schedule those kind of micro meetings, right?
Yep,
And pay. Okay,
you as the smart person would.
right.
I'm not saying that the other people are dumb, but you as the idol here would set
I have
your.
a little knowledge and a
Yeah,
little wisdom
yeah,
about the
you'd set
thing,
your
and
limit.
what's the fastest way to grow is to hurry up and have those conversations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then the whole goal became, can you also do like audio and video messages back and forth with them and
Blah,
pay
blah,
for
blah,
a
blah.
chunk of
Yeah.
those? And it became this whole thing, but that failed. Ended up finding somebody to buy it, but it failed because of my mistake.
Well, so that was a software kind of platformy thing, not a servicey thing. So it didn't
Yep.
really require your time to deliver
Yep.
it. And that was VOCUL. So you're playing on the words, right? With interesting domain names. I see a pattern here.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't
You
stop there, but yeah, there's
yeah, right.
definitely a pattern.
So why do you think that failed?
Easy, easy answer here. I outsourced it on Upwork. At this time, I was maybe like 24,
Yeah,
25. So like I didn't have a ton of money at this time.
yeah.
I had just bought a house in Austin. And so I outsourced it on Upwork. Every single company on Upwork was saying, hey, in person was saying, hey, that will be $60,000 to build. But one specific agency said, I can do it for 12,000. And I said,
Yeah.
yep, let's do it. Should have been the biggest red flag, right? But it wasn't. I ended up going with them. We ended up getting 11 different, what I called professionals on the platform. And they had around 30 million followers total, because that was the whole point, like get big names on there. MLB players, stock traders, real estate people.
Oh,
We had a
right.
lot. And so
Yeah.
so we ended up launching the day of launch, and like we have a ton of site traffic because they're posting it on their Instagrams, like, hey, come book time with me, come hang out. And I was like, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that was the
okay.
marketing play. Is like,
Yeah, I
you
get it.
post for us, so I don't need to spend money in marketing. And then you make your money based on if people book time with
Yeah.
you. And then the site launched, and next thing you know, people couldn't book time. The payments didn't go through. It was a
Tech problems.
total disaster. It was a total disaster. And that's why I failed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it sounded like the idea worked. The execution wasn't up to par yet,
Yeah.
and you're kind of figuring this out. And were you married by then? Was your spouse saying you can go play in your spare time and invest a little
Yeah.
I don't know, get some, let's say, gambling money?
Yeah, so I was married by then, and that $12,000 was my budget for
Yeah.
for this. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Well, that's interesting. And then, so you learned I can create something. I can get demand. I can start to move things. I can get some customers. I'm not good at the technology stuff yet, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You're the
Yeah.
sales founder, not the tech founder kind of thing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
great. So you said I'm not giving up on this side gig world. I still have hope. Did you have ideas everywhere you looked? You had a whiteboard of ideas and, that kind of thing?
A note, the notes
Yeah,
app
the
in your
notepad. Yeah,
iPhone
yeah,
is
yeah.
mine's. I actually started a newsletter too, and this wasn't for a side gig. This was just because I had so many ideas that I would never work on, and it was literally
Mm,
me giving out business
yeah,
ideas, and I
right.
had hundreds of people that subscribed to it, and it was just a business idea every week, a new business idea to give out to the public because I don't have the time to build them all, but I always think that they're cool.
Well, some founders, vertical SaaS founders, for instance, they're in an industry and they see this chronic problem, and that's the chronic problem, and nobody's going to solve it, and they take responsibility to go solve it, and they get the technology and figure it out. But that's the opposite of what you're doing, is saying, there's a palette of all kinds of ideas. I go to McDonald's, I could do something over here, and what about this, and what about that? Everywhere you look, you're seeing ideas. How do you think about the ideas? You have your notebook, but what turns, you know, 100 ideas or 1,000 ideas into, oh, these are interesting, and then I'll invest in one to see if there's something there. How do you play that game?
Yeah, for me, again, everything's an idea in my opinion,
Yeah.
and it's like
Oh.
my life, like whatever's going on in my life or what I see, I'm like, oh,
Oh.
this can be more efficient. And there's usually things. There's always. It feels like you turn the corner and there's something out there for almost
Yeah, of course.
anything, right?
Yeah, that's the way
Totally
it's the way
fine.
we
My
see things. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. My idea is so Vocal, there was nothing like Vocal when I built Vocal. And the worst part about building Vocal, there was Masterclass, which was somewhat similar, but
Right.
you that was different,
Yeah.
pre-recorded. What I've realized is I will never tap into a market that doesn't have demand again, where you have to create demand
There we
and then
go. Thanks for
bring in that
sharing that.
demand. So yeah, when I
Because
think
you
about I
just doing that 0 to 1 demand creation, you've never heard of this thing. Hey, everybody, there's this new thing. That's just
yeah.
too much of a lift, as opposed to everybody's
Yeah.
searching for it already, and I've got a better way to fit in there.
Exactly. If you're using big technology today or any sort of technology today and there's something annoying about the technology, in
Mm.
my opinion, the way my mind works is you can probably fix a small little problem in that technology, generate revenue, and then get it acquired for a little bit. Like have some fun on the side. So that's what I think. And I have side gig ideas now that I actually want to sell and take 5 to
Oh,
10% of the profits, the revenue sharing, and then I'm hands off. Somebody else runs it and takes 90%, but I'll set it up for them. There's so many
right.
of those that I have. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
always
Troy,
there.
you haven't done this 10 times. You're not an older guy who says, I've been doing this for 30 years, or like me or something. But you're already kind of coming up with a rule set that works for you. There's lots of ideas. There's lots of opportunities. I'm not going to do a new thing anymore. I'm
Mhm.
going to find an acute problem. With Dimmo, you're probably staying pretty close to home. Software for sales and marketing technology. You're kind of starting there. That Dimmo game. Are there any other kind of filters that you have already that you can start it without a lot of cash and sell it pretty quickly?
There's not really any more filters, but there are like what I think about is like, does this require deep research or like deep science and things like that?
Yeah.
And if so, then you should probably go the VC route. Like if it's really,
Yeah.
really deep tech. But the only filter is like if this is annoying you and it's stopping you from doing something in your job, it could probably be a software or it could probably be a product. And then a lot of ideas that I also think of is, and I guess you can say it's a filter, is like every company needs to generate more revenue. So what
Yeah.
ideas do you have out there that can help a company generate more revenue? Like that's I think that you can build really whatever. These, like I said
Right.
early on, like build an
Hmm.
MVP pretty easily, get it spun
Right.
up in a month or two, get some early access customers. I don't think it's as hard as people think to get those first customers, but it
Yeah.
just requires like actually doing it.
Well, Demo showed up in your wheelhouse as well. You could, between you and your now co-founder partner out there, you had audience of customers you could reach. So you started with an audience, you
Mhm.
might say, and in a problem you could describe in a sentence. What is the one sentence description? Maybe it's on your homepage here.
Yeah, evaluate software without sales.
Okay, like, well-known problem out there, and you say that, and everybody says yes. I
Yep.
get it. It's pretty quick, kind of thing. When you say, get it up and running and sell it pretty quickly, what's in your head? And I know you raised a little money with Demo here, but are you, with referral, another company you Was that acquired? The
That
second
was
year?
that was what
Okay.
that was my biggest baby that was acquired. Yeah.
Well, I guess let's jump to your company that you sold, Referral. Refurl, fun name. Domain still available, apparently
Yep.
today, right? So that's pretty cool. Tell us about what was that? That started as that was a side gig as well that you sold.
Another itch, man, another itch.
Yeah.
Yeah, my company had a incredible referral program. I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this. If you
Wow.
referred a company and they
Hmm.
became a customer, that person that made the referral gets $20,000 directly to them, to their bank account. And I was
Boom.
like, if somebody referred 3 customers, that's $60,000 extra in a year. Like that's a great like, side gig. Honestly,
So
like
that
that's a
must have been
great
a
side.
very high price point kind of
Yes.
thing,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
a very
honestly, the
costly cost of
yeah.
acquisition where they could pay 20 grand and say that's a bargain.
Exactly, exactly. And so I was like, "Holy cow, this is crazy, but why is no one biting?" And then I peeled the onion and I was like, "Okay, well, none of our sales reps or marketing team or customer success team, nobody is telling these customers that there's a referral program." And then when they do, like anytime we'd bring it up on a team call, we would all remind our customers one time and never reach back out again. And then from there, it became this whole attribution thing where it's like, okay, but how do you track it? Was there already an
Right. Did they
opportunity
really
open?
refer it, or did they come in through a paid
Yeah,
ad?
it's and
Yeah.
so I built a yeah, I actually found somebody in my neighborhood, which this is actually it's a way that I recommend to find co-founders to everybody out there. I found somebody on my Facebook, my neighborhood Facebook page.
Hmm.
I just went to that, I typed in software, and I saw a post that said, like, any other software developers in the neighborhood, and I messaged all of them. And I was like, "Hey, I have this referral idea. Do you wanna talk about it?"
That's funny.
Anyway, so I found my co-founder there in Austin, Texas. We built it in a way where you automate the outreach, you do the payments, you do the tracking, and then you also make sure that you can attribute it to the right source. And then, yeah, we automatically sent out the gift cards, the payments, whatever it was, and we showed you how much pipeline and revenue that we're generating for you. And so that was that. And I didn't see a big enough market for that. You can only ask somebody for a referral so many times before they're exhausted and annoyed with you. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you learned something there, but the technology worked this
Yep.
time,
Yep.
and you got some customers and some revenue, right?
Yep.
And then you sold that. Did you sell it on one of those websites where you sell little software products, or websites for 100,000 or 500,000, like
Yeah.
acquired.com or flippa.com?
Yeah, so I did. I sold it on acquired, but what's
Okay.
funny and like the weird caveat here is I actually found the purchaser through LinkedIn. It was another company in like the networking space, like go leverage your network. And I
Yeah.
reached out to the CEO and just said, "Hey, I'm looking to sell this company. Here's what I do. It's kind of similar to yours." And then we did the whole legal stuff on acquired because it weeded out all the legal work and legal costs that we needed to do. So yes, it's weird. It's like I found the buyer, but then we procured it through acquired, and I recommend acquired to everybody.
So I'm happy to, take your referral here, but what is so useful about acquired.com, which is a marketplace where you can post your company and there's a lot of potential buyers there.
Yeah.
And it's a way to administer a small transaction efficiently. So tell us about your experience with Acquired.
Yeah, that last part was the best experience. And so for me, it was essentially like having a third party administer everything from like an NDA perspective, legal perspective, and due diligence perspective without like this whole back and forth and
Paying
like, is
lawyers.
this person real about this? Is it not real? Like, what about the funds? How do I receive those? It was
Yeah.
just really easy. Like it took a couple days to get through everything. And then next thing you
Oh,
know, yeah, it was, but we already knew that this was going to be a transaction. I literally just
no, I
went,
get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Normally, due diligence is where founders take a deep breath and say that was the worst 3 months of my entire experience, and but we got
I,
through it because it's the proctoral exam. You're getting they're going through every single contract or whatever. When
yeah.
you sell for 50 million or something like
Yeah,
that, so
yeah,
that's great. And was that a few $100,000? Was that enough of a price where you said,
yeah,
this is what I'm starting to talk about here?
yeah. So it was in the six-figure range, and it definitely was that first
Okay.
hint of what could be because I was like, this is just a side gig, and now I'm like, maybe there's something
Yeah.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And what did
so
your wife say about that? Like, okay, you have a little more money to spend or
that's
something like that?
yeah, my side gig fund became a little bit bigger, and I was able to touch it a little bit more. And so it was exciting all around. But hey, no more student loans or anything, so I'm pumped.
Oh, great. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And, this is a way to learn the entrepreneurial game without betting your career and going in entrepreneurial poverty debt, which is
Yep.
when some people quit their jobs before they really know what it's working,
Yep.
and could support themselves. Very practical about you. Were you like the all day, all night worker guy?
I was the all day worker guy. Even to this day, I'm strict on like go to bed at 9:30, but I wake up at 4. So it's like there's this trade off,
Okay.
right? And so
Yeah.
I don't know. Give me my 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and don't stress out about the little things. It's kind of like how I how I live my life. So I hate the 24/7 working, but what I will say, and this is a bad habit, so anybody listening that's thinking about creating a side gig, I definitely favored because it was more fun my side gigs over my W-2 to the point where like
Yeah.
it did start to impact performance, but I
Yeah.
always made sure that I was like still performing and doing just as
Yeah.
good as everybody else, if not better. But yeah, it became really fun to run my side gig.
And what was that decision like to quit your day job, the W-2, the steady paycheck, you were in enterprise sales, so you did pretty well, to go off and run this thing full time and have to do everything, the stuff you don't like to do inside the business and so forth. You say it felt pretty good, but what did that feel like when you finally walked away?
So it felt good, but I actually the fun fact is I was forced into it. It wasn't my decision to go full time.
Yeah.
And I kind of touched on it, but I didn't really get into the details. So
Okay.
I was at a company where I was just hired on, by the way. I was just hired on to a new company because Proofpoint didn't have any Wisconsin positions. And we knew that we were going to go move to Wisconsin. So I
I
ended up
see.
taking
Right.
another job
Okay.
at a startup. I let that startup know. Like it was very obvious. It was on my LinkedIn and everything. And I even let them know. I had to let the
Yeah.
CEO
You're
know.
out there chiming in on LinkedIn about it.
Yeah.
It's not in secret. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a secret at all. And like they knew that I had a LinkedIn audience. And I actually think that it's one reason they hired me. But
I'm sure.
yeah, and the whole thing was I was like, well, I want to let you know I'm running Dimmo on the side. It's not competitive, and I will make sure that I continue with my performance and that I keep performance up. And they're like, that's fine. All that to say is I was there for maybe 2 months, and then they're like, Troy, you're only running Dimmo, it seems like. It's because what they did not appreciate was I didn't post about the company. Like they
Yeah.
wanted to use my
Yeah.
audience to try to
Hmm.
drive more leads. And I get it, but it was a cybersecurity company and I only have salespeople in my audience. So it was like
Yeah.
it didn't make sense to post about them and I've been working my ass off on LinkedIn for 2 years. I didn't want to like ruin what
Yeah.
I had built.
Big asset. Right. Yeah.
Of course. And so finally, after 2 months, they're like, Troy, you're very clearly like your heart. What they said specifically was your heart is somewhere else. You've been here for 2 months. You've made 93 posts, and they've all been about either sales or demo, and nothing about us. And I was
Hmm.
like, you're right. And I would be very pissed if I had an employee that did that as well. So what are we gonna do here? And they were like, you're gonna have to go effective immediately. Luckily, we had just closed on that angel round that we talked about, and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
well,
There we
salary to
go.
salary, let's go. Here we are.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And now, you have revenues now? Are you burning some of that angel funding, or are you racing to get up to, um, you know, break even and not spend more than you make?
Yeah, so we're burning more than we make right now, but not by a ton, which I'm actually really happy about. I want
I'm
to
sure.
become profitable within about the next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
With this trajectory, I think we can. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're burning some, and it's honestly the biggest cost is the employee salary. And I'm sure that's everybody when you hire people. It's my
Yeah.
salary and our head of content salary. Those are our biggest costs.
Right. And you're the marketing engine, right? Which is now your labor and your
Mhm.
insights and your reputation and so forth on LinkedIn. You're two co-founders, but you're not paying for big trade shows. You're not paying for conferences. You're not paying for leads. You're doing that yourself here.
Yep.
So you raised 800,000. So I don't know what percentage of the business you sold to raise that, and I know that was more than you expected. You were expected to be a little light, and the check showed up, and you said, "Okay, let's do it." But that raises the bar for you and your founders to sell this thing and split it between you and make the same amount, right? You've,
Yeah.
percentage wise, cut let's say another co-founder in effectively, something
Yeah.
like that. So you could get to $1 million here, and if this thing has a trajectory and somebody can connect the dots, maybe somebody would pay $10 million for that. The 10x pretty early, or, something
Yeah.
like that. But do you need to get this to a few million in revenue? So more than 100,000 a month in, recurring revenues on average to make this interesting?
I'd say yeah. I was gonna say no to start that answer, but I don't think so. But I think realistically, like, yeah, I want to. It's like more of a want.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but
So you don't
yeah,
feel a gun to your head from the investors, and now again, when you raise big VC funding, you raise $10 or $20 million. All of a sudden, your
oh,
goal and your trajectory goes up, and so but you're not feeling that, is what you're saying. And if you build a great business and it grows at the pace that it needs to grow at, you'll sell it and pay back investors, and you're not pressured that you need to 10x their returns in a certain amount of time.
oh yeah. I don't feel any pressure at all. Not right now. So
Yes, right.
hope it stays that way.
What do you feel pressure about in your business? Getting those customers, getting those demos, getting that traction?
Yeah, it's the biggest pressure that I feel today is traffic. Like how to grow our website traffic week over week, month over month. And
Yeah.
the reason I say that is because I mean essentially a YouTube, right? YouTube only cares
Yeah.
about their traffic, right? And so
Hmm.
we have that same sort of model. And the more traffic we can get to our customers,
Hmm.
one, the more we can charge. But two, the happier they are and the more it becomes like a necessity versus like, yeah, I think we should buy demo. It's more like we need to because they have a lot of traffic and they're watching a ton of
Right.
our demos, a ton of our competitors' demos. Like we need to pay. And so my biggest pressure right now is just driving consistent
Yeah.
growth on the traffic perspective. I don't care about revenue right now. I know
Yeah.
revenue will come if our traffic is there. Like it's inevitable. So that's really what I'm waiting for.
And are you getting pretty consistent conversion? Traffic turns into demo watch, turns into something else?
Yeah, yeah, and we actually gate our site, so you do actually need to log in once with a business
Oh, okay.
email. But I
Yeah.
I, I think that we ran a test of if we remove the gate, does the percentage of visitors on the site stay on the site longer, and then do they watch more demos? And the very obvious answer
Yeah.
was yeah. Like if there's no gate, more percentage of the people will watch a demo and they'll stay on the site for longer. And so we're trying to find some ways to remove the gate but still be able to like provide a personal experience to the user because we want to be able to provide like a somewhat like a TikTok style experience where hey, you're a VP of RevOps, this playbook might be interesting to you. This technology is now emerging. This is like we want to be able to provide that to people. So we're finding
Okay.
some ways.
Yeah, be compelling and not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
move beyond the demos to just an addictive scrolling experience,
Hey,
something like that.
Gen Z is stepping into the business world. I'm trying to attract to it.
I get it. Yeah, here we go. Here, yes, scrolling the software,
Yeah.
software stuff there.
Yeah.
Very interesting, and of course, a lot of stuff on LinkedIn is useful and curious about that, but we
Yeah.
don't get to see it in video and all of that. So, do you have a plan for the next year, or every month you've got your ruthless priorities?
I mean, my plan for the next year is to hit 1 million in revenue. I
Yeah.
think if we can hit 1 million in revenue, then we're in a really, really good position for at least to start opening eyeballs of acquirers. But outside of that, like I still want to keep the team lean. And I want to see like in
Hmm.
the next year, can we somehow introduce transactions through demo as well, where you don't pay a sales rep 200K OTE, instead you pay a small percentage of a transaction on demo. So I want to see if we can somehow implement that. And I think for small businesses, it might be easy to get them to try it, but you're
Hmm.
not going to buy an IBM through demo. So
No, that's right.
yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, and what does your day look like now? I mean, you get up early. Are you working all day on your thing till 4 to 4 or whatever?
No, yeah.
Those kind of full day things, or what does your day look like?
Yeah, yeah. I wake up early because I need some me time without the kid, without the
Yeah.
wife. And so
Okay.
I wake up before I go work out or go on a run. I
Yeah.
kind of get like my mind going.
Yeah.
I sit down to work at 8 actually after I drop my son
There you
off.
go. Yeah.
I drop my son off at daycare, come home, sit down. I work till 4:30 and then he comes home from daycare. So I try to be very intentional with my son's here. He's in front of me. Like, does he
Yeah.
want to grow up with a dad that's constantly like ignoring him and working or not? And so I'm very
Yeah.
intentional with my time with him. And then after that, I'd say about 3 nights a week, I'll work all throughout the night after he goes to bed. And by that I mean like from 7 to 9:30. Um, But then 2 nights a week, like, I'm like, "Okay, that's my wife time." Like, that's
Yeah.
I'm very but then there are weekends as well. There's definitely weekends during his nap, at night, in the morning where I'll work, so it's
Right.
yeah.
Well, you got a lot going on there, and you're creating a life that works for you, and finding
Yeah.
leverage where you can do it. Do your neighbors and your family and friends think you're a little crazy out there, quitting your day job, doing this crazy thing, on the internet?
Yeah, yeah, I think they do, and they think it's funny that I post on LinkedIn. I think it's, like, interesting, like, is he a social media influencer? Like, what is he? And I'm like, "No, I just post sales tips, and it just somehow stuck," and,
Yeah.
I think that's even more weird than the whole quitting the day job is the fact that, like, people will say, you should meet Troy as a LinkedIn influencer." I'm like, "That's weird. I just post." So, that's the
Yeah,
weirdest
I
thing.
have a version of that. I'm putting useful stuff out there for the people I care about, and
Yeah.
yeah, built an audience just like you have.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's so
What is
weird.
your best LinkedIn method for getting an audience? This is a chronic challenge for a lot of founders who have a point of view and want to share something here. Do you have a playbook that, if you look at my posts, I have a certain kind of style and a certain kind of approach.
Mhm.
Do you have an approach that works for you with LinkedIn?
I actually just presented this last week as my favorite thing I've ever presented. And yeah, I do. For me, it's one, post every day if you can, or at least I don't
Yeah.
post at all on the weekends anymore, but I did for sure. So for me, it's like in the beginning, there's a couple things. One, just continue to post. I actually shared a screenshot last year. My top post in January had 7 likes. Now I'm like upset if it gets less than 100. So like
Yeah.
there's that kind of thing. And so for me, it's one, post every day if you can, engage every day for sure. So Monday through Friday, engage every day. What I like to say is when you're starting, try to get like 20 to 25 meaningful comments a day. Connect with people that are in your ICP. So if you sell to marketers, if you sell to RevOps, whatever, connect with people, comment on their post. Don't just like pitch them. And then over time, just start DMing them, forming relationships. Like if they ever interact with your post, like your message, go message them and be like, "Hey, thank you so much for interacting with my post. I'm just starting to post on LinkedIn. It's been weird for me. So I really appreciate the support." Like
Yeah.
knowing that that is your future customer, like that first impression is huge.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, a lot of people don't know what to post about. I think it's really easy to find things to post about. I have a whole method behind that as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
my biggest thing when you do post and you do start to get the wheels turning, that, in my opinion, that hook sentence, the first thing that you say will make or break your post. That first line, it's either going to be, I know, like before I hit post, I'm like, yeah, this is going to do good.
Right. And
So,
that hook is, you're scrolling along, you see the first two sentences,
yeah,
and you're like, I can't not click on this,
yep,
right? So you've mastered the art of that hook. And then it's also useful. So if people are commenting, they're saying, oh, that's
yep,
useful. I get
yep,
and interesting. They're reading the whole thing, they're commenting on it, and then engagement multiplies LinkedIn,
yeah.
the algorithm there.
Yeah. And another thing there real quick is the other thing that when I noticed my post start to perform better was really around like two things. One, it was either like a controversial hook, like, oh crap, I have to look at
Yeah.
this. Or the other thing is like I changed my phrasing from like how to. So for example, how to build a sales playbook, like that, great. You go to Google for that. Go to Chat GPT for
Yeah.
that. We don't need
That's what
people
you
for
would
that.
Google. Right.
All right. How I. So anytime I switch my how to's to how I closed a
Oh,
900K deal, how I prospected into a $10 billion account,
right.
that's when it went through the roof. When people are like, I want to know the exact example of how he did it versus like giving me a playbook I can find on Google. So that changed a lot too.
I get it. That's
Yeah.
really useful for people out there.
Yeah.
Well, Troy, do you have any advice for folks out there that are listening and saying, I have an idea that I'm turning into a side gig that I want to turn into a business, and maybe I go long, or maybe I, do it
Yeah.
quickly, like you're thinking about. Do you have any advice for them of going from idea to quit your day job?
Yeah. I think one is definitely like don't be scared to start. Two is know that what I think a lot of people fall into this trap, especially as sellers, is
Hmm.
I can't build a product. How am I going to do this? Like we feel lost without an engineer. What I have come to realize after doing this enough times is engineers also kind of feel lost without a sale, like somebody to put their product to market. So like there actually is this
Yeah.
marketplace that needs to be created to
Yes.
find good.
Right.
The
Yin
Y
and yang.
Combinator portal is good,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'd say try to find a co-founder. Ask friends and families if that doesn't work. Look in your neighborhood. If that doesn't work, I say go to like LinkedIn, type in full stack engineer, filter it out to your city. grab all of their emails with a free email tool and just email them like, hey, I have an idea. You're in my city. Let's meet up for coffee and chat. Easiest way that you can find a co-founder.
Wow.
So,
Good
yeah.
one. Well, all the best to you and your growing family and your growing business. And, maybe, as you build your career, you'll keep doing this over and over again. I don't think you'll be able to stop. I think that long list of ideas, you're going to have with you for the next, the rest of your years,
Yeah.
Troy.
Yeah. And hopefully, let's say in a year or two, this has been very fruitful and I can come back on and be like, Greg, let's talk about
Yeah,
the
and here's how I got
acquisition.
to the other side.
Yeah.
Do you think you would sell it on acquired, or is this amount too high for that kind of platform?
I think it's too high, but I've also seen pretty big acquisitions happening on acquired
Okay.
somewhat recently. But it depends. I don't know. The world might change to where you can just go acquire 50 million businesses, $50 million businesses just through the internet. I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
Right. Well, one of the chronic problems that entrepreneurs like you have, right? They got a lot of ideas and could, it gets easier to feel like you could create something and get up and running is now this side gig, you might have more side gigs on your side gig, kind of thing and juggle the rest of them. But you seem pretty focused on this one right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is the baby. This is the baby.
Awesome. Great. Well, congratulations on your fast start progress and best wishes to you, Troy.
Yeah, Greg, thanks so much for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for watching this week's founder interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to hit like and then subscribe to my Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly videos for serious software founders who are building valuable companies without big funding. Check out my blog and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com. And follow me on LinkedIn to keep the conversation going. See you next week.